lot of wildlife from the farm, but not many actually eat cranberries. And if you ate a raw cranberry, you know why. Because not too many things will actually. So it's unlike where birds will often attack. We have a small patch of blueberries, and the birds can easily ravage the blueberries. With cranberries, we don't have too many animals that actually eat the berries. Sometimes mice will, wildlife side of it, we have geese that can cause challenges on the bog, especially when it's flooded like this. They are constantly in the bed, so you chase them out. Muskrats that like to burrow holes into the dikes, and if they start burrowing a hole into the dike and it causes water to start passing through, ultimately potentially causing a breach of a dike, that's something we have concern about. But we really don't have a lot of wildlife in some of the other growing regions have more problems with deer or that eat a lot of fruit. We do have deer that transit the bogs, but not. They really don't eat a lot per se. So,
how variable is the supply that comes out from year to year? I mean, as long as you take care of the temperature and do what you're supposed to, can you get a consistent yield every year? Or?
It's a good question. It's a great challenge for us as growers because cranberries tend to be biannual in production by nature. So it's our challenge to try to even that out over the years. And there are a lot of variables. I mean, a lot of them are weather related, which are totally outside of our control. But we try to adjust to that pace with fertilization, irrigation management, and it's really, frankly, become more of a science and understanding the needs of the plant and how we adjust to it and how we adjust to what Mother Nature throws out at us. We've been fortunate that we've been able to stabilize the crop here pretty well. I mean, frankly, I'm not happy with this crop on this bog. I think it's down from certainly the last couple of years. But we've seen that as a whole, and the industry is down. But when I look at the whole crop as a farm, I'm probably going to be very close to last year, maybe down just slightly. So I'm happy with that. Unfortunately, this is my A-pool bog.
So kind of 5 to 10%, or is there a percent yield or a percent variation from year to year?
You can have. I know of one of my friends' growers is having just a tremendous decrease from last year. I mean, so initially we started off being down about 8% from last year. Now I'll give you an example. This is my 5th crop. The first 2 years we picked almost 4,000 barrels total off the farm. A barrel is 100 pounds. Is the way to measure we use. We picked almost exactly 4,000 barrels the first 2 years. The 3rd year we had a huge increase up to 5,000 barrels. And then we jumped a little bit further in 2012 to just over 5,000 barrels. So we were consistent. And so this year I'm expecting probably to be just under 5,000 barrels. So I'm pretty happy with the consistency. But one of the big things that you also see is variation in varieties, because sometimes varieties can be real productive one year and not the next. So that's one of the things we grow. We have 4 different varieties of cranberries on the farm. So I've seen that this year my house, for example, threw a tremendous crop, did really, really well, and that's what's helped to bring the average of the farm up. So that's one of the reasons why you'll see growers have different varieties too. Maybe looking over the greater period of the whole farm instead of one individual bed. But you can see dramatic increases or decreases year to year. And a lot of it can be weather related. Too much water. I mean, the month of June, we had 14 inches of rain. And then we haven't had practically anything for July, August, September, and so far in October. With too much rain during bloom, that could be probably one of the more detrimental parts of pollination and ultimately fruit set. Too much water will definitely take your yields down. So that's an example of something that we can't control at all that will hit us. Any question over here?
Yeah, what percentage of the berry are you removing with your machine? Are you getting all of it?
Yeah, pretty much almost 99% of it. You'll see the only parts of the bed that are really difficult to reach sometimes are the far ditches. I mean, the ditch reel does a good job of reaching down to a certain point, but the way the vines droop down into the ditch, it's difficult to reach all of them. So as I say, those of you familiar with Kentucky bourbon, they always say that in the barrels, the small amount evaporates. They call it the angel's share. Well, anything left behind was the angel's share.
What do you do with the different varieties
large enough they can be sliced. A lot of the smaller berries, like house and early blacks, will ultimately become concentrate for juice or sauce. But from a consumer perspective, it's kind of funny. We don't market cranberries at all by variety, like apples are. Obviously, very frequently marketed by variety. Any others?
You see a consolidation of growers in the area? Is it pretty steady?
There was, when the industry crashed in 1999, 2000, there was some consolidation, but it wasn't nearly what we had predicted at that time. I mean, there's been a huge consolidation in agriculture as a whole, frankly. No matter what the type of crops they're growing. So we've seen some consolidation, but frankly, I think a lot of the small farms have survived, and particularly in Massachusetts. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've been able to rely on off-farm income. 70% of our growers in the state produce on less than 20 acres. So the vast majority are pretty small farms. Now, there's a huge gap there too, because our largest grower is close to 2,000 acres, and then we have a lot of farms in the 2 to 500 acre range as well. So, and some of those larger farms have bought up smaller ones, but not to the scale that we would have expected when the industry crashed in 99, 2000. One of the exciting things I think they're seeing is a lot of interest in the next generation coming on. So there's a lot of young farmers, a lot of growers that have come in. The kids have come back, if you will, to the farm, and that's been pretty exciting to see happen.
As you mentioned, a farm of 20 or 22 acres.
Yeah.
Would, in your situation, would you actually expand this bog in here just to make it a little larger? Can you plant the new bog?
Yeah.
How long does
I
it
mean,
take?
today, most of these beds here are pretty old, traditional wetland cranberry beds that were built 100 years ago. Today, if we were to build a new cranberry bog, you have to build it in an upland. And a good example, frankly, there's a bog right behind you. You can see up about elevation, up about 10 feet above us. That was an upland bog. That basically was an area that was maybe forested. The trees were removed. The soil was excavated. The grower brought in wetland soils, peat, organic matter, and basically trying to replicate a wetland in an upland. And because of state and federal wetland laws, that's where farmers have to expand cranberry beds today. Really, my options, I do have options for expanding if I wanted to build new beds. So we've got an area in the back there that we've been excavating sand and gravel out of that we could build some new beds on. And I'm considering that because I've got another 5 acres further out back, and some of it is very poor producing, very wet beds. And so I'm thinking about whether or not I should abandon a section of that, build in an upland area with a new hybrid variety, and really put myself ahead as far as productivity, but keep the basic footprint of the farm the same. One of the other options we have as growers is renovating the existing bog